The robot does not make inefficient movements. The robot goes from one point to another, which is mathematically calculated, shortest path possible. That is the way it's going to go. No matter you do it, no matter I do it, no matter a APP, advanced practice provider do it, no matter a gastroenterologist who does it. I think it's the team-based care is here to stay. I would say that don't forget that robot is a part of team as well.
Dr. Sanket Chauhan, founder and CEO of Surgical Automations. A very warm welcome to the Scope Forward show.
Thank you so much, Praveen. I've been a huge fan of your books and the Scope Forward and the private equity. Thank you for your research and bringing it us in form of books for us to read. Appreciate that. And a huge fan of your show.
Likewise, the moment I set my eyes on what you do and what Surgical Automations does, the innovation, I've been quite excited to have this conversation. And I've been really looking forward to engaging with you and understanding where the future of gastroenterology could go in the context of robotics. Let me first start by asking you a basic question. What in your background connected you to robotics and what brought you here?
Yeah, so when I came to US, I was in a robotics program for my fellowship, and that was in Florida in Celebration Hospital, Florida Hospital, now called Advent Health. I was privileged to be trained under Dr. Patel. It's been an honor to be trained under him. He's the most experienced robotic surgeon in the world. He's the founder of Society of Robotic Surgery and just a great mentor and a great friend. So with that started my journey in robotics. At that time, I always had this, mechanical engineering kind of side of it. So we were working with University of Central Florida in the Department of Computer Engineering over there, and we were working with some students and all, developing new stuff. We actually started a course just for medical robotics. Then at that time, we got a congressional grant from Department of Defense. This was earmarked, I think, 2008, 2009. And this was based on surgical robotic telepresence surgery and surgical simulations. So that was what I always wanted to do. So I kind of extended the fellowship into that track, and I was a Department of Defense fellow for a year over there. And then I moved to University of Minnesota and did another fellowship in surgical simulations. And since I graduated, I've been here in Dallas, Texas. So, this company, we really started, 3-4 years back, just at the time of COVID. And that's where our journey started.
What led you to start the company? Was there a specific episode, an insight? And how did you pick gastroenterology as a focus area?
We actually did not pick gastroenterology as a focus area. It turns out that the macro world was very supportive of respiratory, upper respiratory, lower respiratory world. It was a time peak COVID out there. Our core technology was what we call closed loop endoluminal navigation system. It's AI-based system. That was the peak, and it's basically pretty much any tube inside the body. We can automate any camera navigation inside a tube, which means that whether it's upper GI, lower GI, cystoscopy, which is urinary bladder, bronchoscopy, ureteroscopy, rhinoscopy. If there's a tube in a body and a scope goes in it, we can automate that. At that time, once you can do everything, once you have a big scope, the tough part is where to start and what you can do. And the macro environment at that time was really supportive for respirators. So we actually started with a small endotracheal intubation. It was perfect. I mean, everyone understood at that time what endotracheal intubation is, ventilation is. And then our goal was to show it to the VCs and show it to the investors and show our investors what we have done, kind of focus on what's the biggest market size. But you always need that proof of concept before you can show and kind of go to the next step. So we actually built an automated robotic intubation robot, which has great potential in things of, pre-hospital care, where EMTs or emergency medical technicians are available and all. So, but then since then, now that we are actually more focused on gastroenterology, colonoscopy and upper GI, they go hand in hand. They're very similar devices, mechanically and electromechanically, if you will. So that is how, we kind of got to that. If you look at the market size, I mean, I think 15 million these are performed just in the United States. The colonoscopy, it's a screening procedure and all. So, and there's a huge backlog. And so So that we thought that this is going to be a great place to start, and that's why we kind of started over there.
Of course, I want to delve deeper with the gastroenterology part. But before we get there, what I want to know, Sanket, is if you can explain, as though you're explaining to a 10-year-old, what is the core technology about? What does it do?
Before I go to core technology, I'll say that how we physicians do procedures. Now, we are trained in skills. Now, skills, my background is in surgical simulation. So, skills, we can break it down to really basic things. And the two things specifically I'll say, one is the cognitive skills. And the cognitive skills for me, in this case, GI is going to be your identification of anatomical landmarks, right? It's that, okay, this is what a sphenic flexure looks like. This is what a polyp looks like. This is what the kind of polyp it is. This is what bleeding looks like, right? This is the cognitive things. Your brain is trained, and your way your brain is trained is because we have been trained after looking thousands of these images over our training. This is how basically we train. We have our mentors who have shown it to us. We have been assisting in procedures and all. That's the cognitive side of this, identification of anatomy. And then there is the psychomotor part of it, which is called the surgical skills in a layman term. Like psychomotor, essentially, how you're moving forward, how you are, cutting, how you are, suturing, things like that. So that is how our mind tells us, our hands, what to do. And this is a closed loop system between hand and mind, right? That when the hand makes a movement, that information goes to our brain. And then the brain kind of reassesses the situation and sends more commands. So this is exactly the technology that we have. We are using AI to kind of do the anatomy identification. Now, if you look at AI-based systems in health tech, you'll see a lot of systems which are doing like they're finding a shadow in a lung, for example, or on a mammogram, and which has great importance. It's kind of giving the diagnostic aspect of it, that this can be precancerous and all. There has even been studies about detecting of polyps in colonoscopy. I mean, GI Genius, Medtronic. I mean, I think pretty much every big company has something related to automatic polyp detection, which is essentially a software that runs on the machines. The next level of that is that, okay, now the software has given you anatomy, an area of interest. Now that information we are sending to robotics and kind of doing the automation, automated navigation in that. This is basically two different technologies that have been existing, that has been well validated. It's nothing new. We are kind of combining them and bringing them together, with the hope that this can really save patients' lives, and can find cancer early, and more people can have colonoscopies, and we can treat these early.
How does the robot find its way inside the gut?
So that is where a proprietary technology is. It needs a lot of data. It needs a lot of training that you have to do. It's a lot of sleepless nights where we have our team working out, and it's a process for that. But that's how it finds it. You train them in anatomy, and then the anatomy, every time the robot moves towards a specific anatomy, there is new anatomy. And it's a closed loop system that we kind of keep doing. So yeah, that's how we kind of train.
So the data that you've trained your robots on would be anatomical data. For example, if it's lower GI, you would repeatedly train the robot on visuals, or would it be actually physical things that you would train the robot on?
It is different kind of images that is there. But yeah, the videos play a big part of it. I think as we do more, we'll definitely get some cadaveric data to do this ourselves. But I don't know why a cadaveric data is going to be any different than a normal colonoscopy that's been done on a patient. So
have you seen the movie Elysium? It's a Matt Damon movie. There's a
I started it a few times, but
so there's a scene in the movie where there's a pod, and people who need to go through surgery, they enter the pod, and then the pod does this surgery. And this is kind of, when that thing came out, all the sci-fi circles that are pertaining to health went all drooled over it and say, oh, this is where everything is going. What do you think of that?
Yeah, I mean, I think was what Steven Spielberg or someone who said there's nothing called science fiction, only scientific inevitability, right? So, whether it's going to happen in our lifetime or my lifetime, I don't know. I think it's going to be cool.
So let's talk about colonoscopy itself. What is your holy grail. Like, so where is this going? What does the technology do right now? And what's it going to do a year from now and maybe 3 or 5 years from now?
If we are specifically talking about surgical automations, we are still developing our technology. Obviously, for us to be in market, it goes through a process of regulatory approvals, which is the Food and Drug Administration or CE mark, and every country have their own regulatory environment, which we have to kind of go through in order to do that. So for us, we are developing the technology. This year, we're gonna be, fingers crossed, we'll try to put them in humans, but we'll see where we go. Obviously, there's a lot more work needs to be done before that. So, it's a process. And every time you go and test it out, you get more information. And the other thing is that medical technology is very different from software, for example. In software world, you can release a beta, and get a feedback and just make those changes. And it doesn't take a long. For us, it has to, before it even goes to the first patient, you have to do a lot of stuff. You have to make sure it's safe. There is no maybes, it has to be do that. So the way I look at it is that we all have families. Is the robot ready to be operated as someone of my family members? And that is, if I can answer that question, I can answer pretty much any safety questions that is out there. So that's the question I'm trying to answer. So 1 year from now, we would like to be very close to first in human trials, basically this time the next year. We'd like to be very close on that, which, obviously there'll be a whole development process, aggressive development process that is already going on. It's only going to go further than that. And then, once we have first in human data, obviously it goes along with, the FDA submissions that we'll do following that, and CE submissions and all. So, that is the plan. Maybe 3 years from now, we will definitely, be applying for the FDA, and maybe in the process of FDA approvals and all. And I think 5 years from now, we'll be commercialized.
And when it is fully commercialized, what is your vision? What do you see happen? Let's say this is wildly successful, like you envision it. What does that look like? How will surgery centers, GI surgery centers, using your technology, what would happen on a day-to-day basis?
What we would like to see is not from a technology perspective, but from a patient perspective. That, what we would like to see, that our technology can reduce complication rates. It can cause less pain to the patient. It can catch the cancer early. It can reduce the backlog of colonoscopies. Those are the things that we'd love to be a part of. Now, that is easier said than done, of course. We have a mountain to climb, and understanding the big vision of it as we sit here on December 6th, 2023, all I'd see is the next step. And I know how to get to the top, but our focus is laser focused on the next step and the next step after that and the step after that. And if we keep doing the next steps right, we will get on the top of the mountain.
Excellent. And what is that next step right now for the business?
Next step is to kind of put these in the cadavers and get some data. So that is where we are right now. Our team is working day and night our very lean team, I would say, is working day and night to kind of take us to the next step. So we'll have some, great updates, hopefully, in by the end of Q2 this year, and we'll see where we go from there.
Excellent, Sanket. So can you give a business update? Anything that you can share, what numbers and how much money you've raised? What are you seeking to raise? And team, do you have any business update that you'd like to share?
Absolutely. Thank you. So we had done a pre-seed round before. It was close to $1 million. It was a note round. Right now, we are actually in the middle of our seed round. We are finishing it up. It's a small $3 million round. It is led by one of the pioneers in robotic world. His name is Dr. Fred Moll. He started this company called Intuitive Surgical. I think the market cap of that, the last I saw, like $120 billion. He then started this company called Auris, which was acquired by J&J, is a robotic bronchoscopy company. And he started a robotic hair transplant company, and he has his own VC fund. And so having been backed by him is an honor for us. A good advisor, a good board member that can take years off the learning curve of a company as small as us. So, I think that is where we are. So we are finishing up our seed round. And then we'll do a series A, next year at some point once we get in cadavers and close to first in human and see where we go.
What aspect of intuitive shows up in surgical automations, or what kind of help are you getting from Dr. Fred Moll? Just as a
Right.
backstory, I instantly been to Intuitive Surgical's offices and I played with their robots. And again, as a layperson, I'm not from a clinical background. I played like an engineer would or as a layperson would. What I felt though, whether it was the vision aspect or whether it was the hand movement aspect, it seemed to give me superpowers. Like, so it gave me a certain fineness or a sensitivity that my fingers would not otherwise have. I had to there was a task like taking rings and putting it on a pyramid or something structure like that. And what I could see was magnified, or it gave me a greater clarity of vision. So I'm just curious to know what kind of experiences are you drawing into surgical automation, especially given Dr. Fred Moll's involvement.
To clarify, now Dr. Fred Moll is not associated with Intuitive anymore. He hasn't for a while. He started that company that was, probably 25 years back, and he has started multiple companies after that. There are a lot of companies that are using similar technologies with variations and all. So this Intuitive Surgical, the robot systems, or all the robotic systems that are available in the market right now, or in research, they are on their philosophy or technology called master slave relationship. And the master essentially said you are doing something with your hands and it's magnified, or it's kind of the tremors are filtered out, or it's magnification that you can see. Our technology is a little different. It is automation, and it is not based on master slave relationship. There is a surgeon in loop, there is a physician in loop, and I think there are a few things that we have put in place so that if things don't go right, then there is somebody to kind of stop it and all those kind of things. There's always a manual interface person who's controlling it, but it's still not a master slave relationship. And the philosophy behind this is that robot is a great assistant if it is intelligent enough. Then it can do the deep tasks, some of the tasks that are psychomotor skills, which are complex for a normal person to do. The robot can do it more efficiently and safely, more reliably. So, that is kind of what the goal is. So Intuitive is not involved. There's no other companies that are involved, but it's the wisdom of the people who have been in industry for so long, and the experience of them, and we are being benefited by them. So
let's talk about gastroenterology. As far as the future of GI and all of medicine, in fact, is concerned, I often like to explore convergence. And interestingly, your company, right from the get go, is combining two different exponential technologies. One is robotics, but the other is also AI. And both are advancing, very, very fast. For example, if in case of robotics, the pace of improvement of sensors is going to improve the robotic automation itself. In case of AI, all the data that the AI is receiving, its cognitive abilities, its ability to use computer vision, as that improves, AI itself is improving. So, with more and more data, things do get better. Now, when you explore this convergence and just go forward to the future, I'm curious to know, where's it going to land? What is your vision for the future of GI? I understand from the patient standpoint, and that's great. But I also want to know at a practical level, where would this convergence land given where technology is going?
see, this all comes back to the patient perspective and the pain points that the patient have. And yes, colonoscopy obviously is the gold standard, and there are other technologies that are coming in. Talking of convergence, it would be great that if you can go with the scope and see if the lesion is actually cancerous or not without doing a biopsy. So there are things that are out there. I don't know if it's gonna take 5 years to get there, 10 years to get there. I want to believe that we would be the closest to those technologies as we go forward. But there is no cap on future. It goes wherever we take it, right? So it will be really interesting to follow the technologies that are around in gastroenterology space and see how we can use it for the best benefit of the patient.
Now, one of the fears that many gastroenterologists have is, with AI and with automations, am I going to have my job? And oftentimes, people on the other side, on the AI side, reassure, and this quote has been repeated ad nauseum, which is, the person using AI will be the one to replace, and it's not the AI itself. Let's get over all that. And I want to actually see, so if technology such as this is available, could a technician not do a colonoscopy? I know I'm going to piss a lot of people off by making this statement, but I'm curious on behalf of everybody. Like, so could the technology, with the aid of highly trained technician, you don't need a clinician, you don't need a surgeon or a physician even, and be able to navigate the technology? Because I've seen the video that you put out there. You press start, stop, make a decision, and it's doing what it needs to do. It'll clip it, it'll identify it, it'll classify it, and then it'll come back.
We talked about, psychomotor skill is just one skill. And what the videos was, it was an oversimplified version of real world, that we made. So let's take a step back. I call these things, there is an inequality in skills, and this is from a patient's perspective. I'll give you an example of endotracheal intubation, right? Endotracheal intubation is basically where you put a tube inside the mouth for ventilation to kind of, it's a part of your life support system and all. And it is done by anyone from an EMT who's on the back of an ambulance to an experienced anesthesiologist in the operating room, right? Now, the most emergent cases are on the field in the pre-hospital setting where, somebody sit down, somebody is not breathing and somebody has to put a tube in, as compared to the operating room where the most experience is available and nobody is dying. These are elective cases. So the same thing applies here. But the question is that, let us talk about the backlog of colonoscopy. It used to be 50, now it's 45 years. Everyone about it, at least United States, everyone over 45 years needs to have a colonoscopy. And it's only going to go less than that. It might be 40, who knows, in a few years. There is a backlog for that. And what if one physician can oversee multiple advanced practice providers? You can do three or four, you can be overseeing three or four advanced practice providers who can do the navigation aspect of it, right? Which means that they can go from the anal canal to the ileocecal junction using the robot with the help of the robot. And if a polypectomy needs to be done, or a biopsy needs to be done, or if a bleeder needs to be burned, then the physician can come and take over, right? So it is more and more of care is going towards advanced practice providers, by no means a replacement for physicians. It is not just the procedures that makes physician, right? There is 15 years of training, the cognitive things that goes into that. It's not just treating a small, polyp. It's about treating the patient. And that not only needs, the ability to go there and ability to take it out. What matters is that how can you reassure the patient, right? So the physicians are going nowhere. Physicians are staying in there. There's no AI is going to take anyone. AI is not going to be, imagine a world where you're talking to an AI and, there's something I talked about cognitive skills, talked about psychomotor skills. There are a few other kind of skills. These are affective skills. How do you talk to the patient? How to communicate? How do you give them bad news? These are skills that the AI doesn't have. Or would you really like a robot to tell you that, hey, you have cancer? Hope not. There's a human side of that. That's what keeps us in medicine. That's what feels us rewarded every day. And I hope that stays.
I want to argue. So if we draw out a bell curve, what you describe is beautiful. Like, that's how you would want every clinician to be. But the reality out there that every clinician is not on the right side of the bell curve. And you're talking about communicating with patients. Most physicians we know, like, so they do not have time to communicate. Thank the EHRs and thank the administration and thank the RVU numbers that they have to meet and all the other distractions that go on a given day. They don't have the time, that they used to have. That's one. The other aspect is the skill level itself. Like, so you're talking of a psychomotor skill, like you're talking of a very specific skill. that skill level also varies to a great degree amongst one endoscopist and another endoscopist. And here's the other thing that I come across every week pretty much. The vast majority of the industry is resistant to change. They don't want things to go away. They don't want to change. In fact, I'll go to the extent that a good part of the industry does not want things to change or does not want to learn what's coming because they just want to finish off with whatever they already know. Why change when the incentive system is not aligned with what is to come? So you have all these problems. So what you say is nice to hear, but I wonder if it's the practical reality out there.
It's interesting that you talked about the bell curve. So there are two systems when it comes to quality, right? The lean and the Six Sigma system. And lean system is all about the Toyota production system, reducing the waste. And the other system is essentially improving efficiency, which is the Six Sigma system, right? And that is what we are trying to do. But that we do it in a lean way is that the robot does not make inefficient movements. The robot goes from one point to another, which is mathematically calculated, shortest path possible. That is the way it's gonna go, no matter you do it, no matter I do it, no matter a APP, advanced practice provider do it, no matter a gastroenterologist who does it, who has been practicing for 30 years. It's going to go the same way. So, yeah, I mean, there is this variability aspect of it. The Six Sigma, that is essentially it improved the quality. Now, in healthcare system, it is not just the procedures, the whole system-based approach, the whole process that kind of responsible for the whole quality of the care. And, that is what the reality is. So I think it's the team-based care is here to stay. I would say that don't forget that robot is a part of team as well. And I think that is how I'm going to challenge the physicians and the healthcare providers is that it has been the nurse, technician, patient, physician, the administrative staff. I would say we have intelligent robots now. Do not ignore them. Maybe we can use them for the betterment of the patients.
Wonderful, Sanket. Any final thoughts as we bring our conversation to a close?
I think, this is wonderful to be on your show. Thank you so much for having us. And, we look forward to the next year and hopefully we have some more announcements to make by the end of next year.
Fantastic, Sanket. I'm so excited for the work that you're doing, and I wish you and your team all the best. Thanks once again for sharing these thoughts on the Scope Forward show. I thoroughly enjoyed our conversation.
Absolutely. And, I have the copies of Scope Forward. Any new hire that we have, they have to read that. That's the first thing. That's a part of their colonoscopy package that we give them, that you have to read this book. So, thank you so much again for bringing these books to life.